me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Green Grass and White Bases podcast. I'm your host, Eric Reardon. We're super excited to be joined today by Alvernia catcher and maybe a little transition to outfielder,
Yes, sir.
Tommy Faggioni. So Tommy is a St. Joe's Metuchen alumni. He's a baseball warehouse alumni, and we're pumped to have him on the show today. I was talking with Tommy earlier in the week, and I said that, being a coach at the D3 level now, I haven't had a D3 guy on the podcast yet, so I'm super excited to chop it up about the level that has meant so much to us over these past couple of years, and just get into the nitty gritty about some stuff that we haven't really been able to dive into on the podcast yet. So, Tommy, pumped to have you, man. Thanks for joining us, and if you just want to provide us with some background, man, please feel free.
Sure. Yeah, D3 lives matter, man. But yeah, I went to St. Joe's, like Eric said, freshman year, sophomore year. I was your typical, high school athlete. Freshman year, I was on the freshman team. Sophomore year, I was on JV. Both years, I split time. So I came into the warehouse, seeking a chance to create separation, really. And I found that a lot through the off-season hitting program and the strength and conditioning. So you were a senior when I was a freshman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just remember looking up to you, and you were huge, man. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to be like that guy, I was like 125 as a freshman, 125 pounds. So, but came in looking to find that separation. So we get to junior year of high school, and we had 5 days a week lifting,
Right.
and get up every single morning at 5 a.m. I used to chug raw eggs before Joe's workouts just so I could get that little extra protein before lifting, and then go get after it at 5:30 to 7. Joe would drive us to class to St. Joe's, like 4 or 5 of us, and 5 days a week. That's all we did for 2 months, and we get to junior year, and it's first game of the season at East Brunswick, and I remember it was between me and another junior catcher, and he got the start, and I was devastated, and it was a cold, rainy day, and on that East Brunswick turf, it was cold, and I just remember being devastated, but I was on the fence. I wasn't going to let that bother me. I was going to cheer my teammate on, and he ended up, thankfully, but unfortunately, he was like 0 for 2 with 2 looking Ks. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, get me in this game. And I just remember, I'm like, all right, I'm going to start getting loose. I'm going to be ready for my chance. And it must have been, the fifth or sixth inning, big spot. It's like a 1-1 game. And I get a pinch hit. And I don't know if you remember Joe Falco.
Of course,
Yeah, I went to St. Joe's. He's throwing hard. And like I said, it's cold. I came off the bench. And I'm like, all right, man, you know what? This is my shot. Like, I've already, seen. I'm like, all right, you can't go get any worse from here, right? Didn't get to start. Just going to let it happen. Just going to play the game. And, pinch hit, double in the gap, scored the go-ahead run. I think we ended up winning that game 2-1. And then ever since there in high school, that was it. I just became a workhorse, in the weight room, on the field whenever I could. And I really just, won that spot through hard work and a lot of effort. So fast forward a couple of years. So I'm in college now. I go to Alvernia University. I was a catcher, and then so COVID was my freshman year. So we get to the springtime. I earned the starting job. We're down in Florida in Fort Myers, and we must have gotten in 11, 12 games before COVID shut us down. So we're on the plane back. I won the starting job down in Florida. I played that whole week. We get back. We're supposed to play TCNJ at our place, and again, it was a rainy day, so we got rained out. And the following day, we're getting ready to play, and coach called us. No. It got scheduled for 2 days later, so we had practice, and coach called us all over, and he was on the phone for practice during practice, so it was a little weird. So he gets that call. It's like a couple teams in our conference like shut down the season. We're like, what's going on? Calls us in the locker room and is just basically like, yeah, you got to grab your things. Everybody's supposed to be sent home. The school sent out that order. So that was definitely craziness. So I just went home, packed it up, and that was it for my freshman year of college. So it was really like I don't even know how to explain it. It was very anticlimactic. We got geared up, won the starting job behind the plate. And then COVID hit, shut us down. So I come back sophomore year, and I get beat out behind the plate by one of my teammates that was in the same year as me. And so I get beat out behind the plate. So I'm like, oh man, like what am I gonna do? DH'd a little bit, played outfield. That's when I got introduced to the outfield. Never played outfield before in my life. And I think that's where a big piece of, being versatile comes in, and, just playing the game for the sake of playing the game, like get me in wherever you can. And then ever since then, I've been bouncing back and forth. And now I would say more mainly an outfielder than catching. I'll still probably catch, anywhere between 6 to 10 games this year for us, but definitely more of an outfielder now.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's awesome, man, to be able to share that story. And I think the main theme that I get from it is just like how you're able to handle adversity, right? So the first point that sticks out is every time we talk about 5 a.m. lifts here at the warehouse when we were in high school,
Mhm.
like what other than making us stronger and turning us into bigger, faster, stronger ball players, right? You learn how to not hit snooze on that alarm at 4:30 when it wakes you up. You learn how to chug those eggs like Rocky Balboa style so you can have something in your belly when you get here.
Mhm.
And then you got to come in and put your work in. It's not just about driving here with, rubbing the crust out of your eyes. It's
Right.
about getting in here and getting your work in so that when you leave at the end of the day, you know you're a better ball player than when you came in. So I think a lot of what that program offers is your introduction to handling adversity and being able to succeed in the face of them. And then, like you're saying, you get to school, COVID happens right after you win a starting job. Now we come back and things are different, and I got to switch positions. But you're able to find a way to succeed and keep yourself in the lineup. So what has that like facing adversity meant to you and being able to handle that?
Yeah, I mean it's been huge for me in baseball for the adversity, and I think it's that much more. It helps me out in life. It's just the little things, man. I mean, anybody can throw anything at you, but you can only control what you can control. And
Absolutely.
I think that's a huge factor for me. Something I try to live by. And there's so many uncontrollables in life and in baseball, and when we focus on the little things and doing little things right, we just worry about getting 1% better every single day. And if you get 1% better every single day, you're 365% better at the end of the year, and that accounts for anything you do: school, baseball, work, your relationships, I think. And I think that this program has instilled that in me in a big way, even though they're little things.
Yeah, I mean, we're super fortunate here at the warehouse to have such a good environment to be brought up in and to kind of have that foundation where, like you're saying, everybody's a little bit different of a ball player, but I think at the end of the day, the real value that we have and that I think can speak to anybody that listens to this podcast or is just a baseball guy is that, like we've talked about before, how you do something is how you do everything. So when you learn at an early age when you're in high school that, we have to stay after it and we have to work hard, that translates to the classroom, to your relationships, to, fill in the blank,
Mhm.
as you're saying. And I think, too, going back to our D3 topic, right? The D3 lifestyle, like you're saying, speaks to that in a way that some other levels might not be able to do. So, what I'm interested in is you talk about your development through high school, where you play freshman, you split time on JV, and then finally your junior year, you end up on that varsity field. So, what we've been talking a bunch about on the podcast so far is just everybody's recruiting process. Granted, it looks a little bit different, but what I've had my eyes open to being at the D3 level these past 2 seasons now is just how late this recruiting process happens.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of lenses you can attack that from where it looks like a negative, where it's like, okay, like these options are exhausted for me and now I have to do, like, this is what I have left.
Mhm.
I think in a totally different light, what I've started to realize is that guys who are in high school might be late bloomers. You might be a guy that, like you're saying, was 125 as a freshman, and
Yeah.
then you put on 50 pounds by the time you're a senior,
Yeah.
and now you get an awesome opportunity to go play college ball. So, talk about what your recruiting process looked like and how it compared to your development as a player in high school.
Yeah, when I was a junior and senior, typically when that, or sophomore, when that recruiting process takes place, I was getting super frustrated, to be honest. I was like, I was going out to camps. I was, doing everything that I thought that I could do, sending out emails to a bunch of schools, seeing who would reply. And that's what your typical process looks like. And then you get a couple answers. For every, 25 emails you send, you're going to get one response. But what I think I took it for granted how late that process happened, because I didn't commit to Alvernia until I was a senior, till February of my senior year, so right before the season started. And I remember committing, and it was a big relief. But looking back now, I definitely think that I could have been more thankful for that, because that allowed me to go through what schools I was looking at and really look at, all right, how far away is it from home? How much is it going to cost? What do I want to do with my life after school? A lot of big things. What's the culture of the team like? What are the
Right.
coaches like? How much am I going to have to be accountable for myself? Like, is it a good program? And I think the lateness that I was afforded allowed me, looking back now, allowed me to make a better decision for myself, right? And just because a coach offers you, you might offer you freshman, sophomore year of high school, that doesn't mean it's always the right choice or the right fit.
Amen.
And like you said, I don't know which podcast, I think it was your first podcast when you're talking about, your career. I don't know how many times your coach has changed,
Right.
and that can happen before you even get there.
Yep.
So, and with different coaches comes a lot of different things, a lot of different cultures, you know, so I'm thankful for it. And again, it doesn't, D3, D1. I was, like I said, I was frustrated. I was like, man, D1 or bust. I just want to go D1. And looking back now, I'm so thankful for it because it doesn't really matter where you go. If you're good, you're good at anything, at any level. As long as you're accountable for yourself and you do what you put your head down, do the work, and get done what you need to get done. I'm a firm believer that good things will happen.
I couldn't agree more with what you're saying there, especially when you're talking about how early on when you're going through that process, you're saying, man, I'm frustrated by how long this thing is stretching itself out. And then you turn the page and you say, that lateness you were afforded. I think that's the perspective that needs to be emphasized because, like you're saying, there's more to picking a college. There's more to picking a school than what's the logo on the jersey. How many likes am I going to get on my Instagram post when I commit? Right?
So much more.
You're in a situation where your freshman year at Alvernia, you win a starting catching job, and then stuff hits the fan with COVID, and we've all been through that, right? But then you come back, that opportunity is not there, but you have a chance because you understand the culture of the team, because you like where you're at, because the coaching staff treats you the right way, right? You got a good group of guys around you that you have an opportunity to change positions and go play the outfield, right? Where if you didn't have the time to make that decision, you might have ended up at a place where they were saying, hey, Tommy, we brought you in as a catcher. We got this other guy that's catching. Go find a different place to play. So I think to the high school guys out there that might listen to this podcast, I think Tommy's message there is super important. Your message is awesome, where find a place where you fit in more than just X's and O's and physically on the field. Find a place where you have an opportunity, where it's a good fit, where a lot of this stuff lines up for you. Yeah. And going off that, right, like we talk about the culture. That's a subject that I've never advertently asked a question about here, but it seems like my conversations always go back to the culture of the program. And when I think about D3 baseball, what I've noticed at Rutgers Newark is our intensity, our level of practice is legit. Like the practices we run at the D3 level with far less resources than I was used to at Rutgers in New Brunswick is super impressive to me. I love how our guys are able to get after it, and I think that speaks a lot to the culture. And like you said right at the top of the show, D3 lives matter, right? Like you guys come in with a chip on your shoulder where, listen, I might have been overlooked. Here I am now, but I'm going to get after it. I'm going to turn myself into a good ball player. So talk about what the practice environment looks like. Talk about how you guys grind in the offseason and prepare yourselves for games at Alvernia.
Yeah. So I think a big eye opener for me in college was the amount you have to be a lot more accountable for yourself in college.
Definitely.
So, we have long 3-hour practices, and by 3 hours, they're supposed to be 3 hours. Sometimes they run up close to 4 hours, and sometimes on the weekends, coach is like, all right, they're at 7 a.m. All right, coach is like, all right, meet you at the turf at 2. Go get some lunch, and we'll see you back at 2. So it's a lot, and it can be honestly boring at some points when you're not doing anything. You have to have the wherewithal and the ability to be like, all right, I need to go find something productive to do, and I need to do it to the best of my ability, right? And it's going to be a lot of, coaches aren't always going to be watching. There's only 4 of our coaches, and there's 50, 40 of us. So
Yep.
And especially when you're inside, there's so many different moving pieces. So we have an indoor facility. And so we'll have a week of pitchers and catchers where it's a lot of bullpens, a lot of catching work. So I still go to that because I'll still be catching a little bit. But then we really get into it, and it's a lot of plays. And, oh, man, if you let it, it will eat you up mentally. It'll eat you up physically. It's a lot of focus needed. And by plays, I mean, all your first and thirds, your bunt defense, your no-look picks, stuff like that, your PFPs. And if you're not finding a way to engage in that practice, I think you're just losing out on an opportunity to get a little better. Whether it's me as a catcher learning the tendencies of my pitchers during PFPs, a big thing we talk about at our school is, know your runners, know your defense, right? I got to know which first baseman can move, which can't for bunt defense. Same thing on third. I got to know which pitchers I have confidence to get a ball that's, questionable between the catcher and the pitcher for a bunt. and which guys I have to really get out there. And there's different guys. Some guys are more athletic than others. Some guys were like, coach looks at me and he's like, you cannot let that guy field that ball. He is just a minus fielder. And that's okay. Everybody's different. And you just have to know that and know your own guys. So when you have some downtime, or when you're not up during a play or something like that, I know I've really learned to try to scan the room and try to figure out, like who can do what and what's everybody's abilities, because, you want to know who you're working with when you're out on the field together. You want to know who the guy next to you is, what they're all about, what they can do. So from that aspect, that's more of the college game that I wasn't really expecting going in. And then from a culture standpoint, I think a lot of our culture comes from our coaches, and I think a lot of our culture comes from our upperclassmen. This year, I think there's only 4 or 5. There's 6 seniors, myself included. And there's a lot of freshmen. There's a lot of freshmen that came in this class. So we have to work really, really hard from the top down to provide a good culture. And it's not just telling guys what to do. It's doing it ourselves and showing them. And not being too tough on guys, because you want to have high expectations, but you also want to have high support for your guys. But that being said, you really want to push guys to be the best in everything that they do, and I think that's something as seniors that we really try to do. Because I remember when I was a freshman, we had an All-American second baseman, and Mike Shirley, he was just unbelievable in everything he did. It seemed like he just did it with such ease, and he never asked you to go pick something up or go move something. He would always say, it takes me more effort to ask somebody else to do it. I'm just gonna go do it myself. And I think he's the best leader I've ever played with, and maybe even been surrounded by in my life. So kind of all those different aspects mix in there for the culture for our organization, I think.
Yeah, and I think what sticks out to me there too is, well, first off, it's awesome that you have an example set early on in your career by your second baseman, Mike, where he's saying, listen, like, this is just the way we're going to do things. Like, I'm not better than anybody else. And to have that, I'm sure it means a lot to him, where he can kind of look back now and say, you know what, I have guys like Tommy who were freshmen when I was here, and that trickle-down effect still plays.
Right, and I have that too, where I see guys that are like that just get it. Some guys get it, and some guys you really got to push them, and some guys are just never going to get it. And it sucks, but you still got to work with them. You still got to learn how to play with them,
Absolutely. And that reminds me of one of the things I always used to say when I was trying to have that impact on younger guys when I was playing was, to be a leader on the field, you also have to find a way to be a leader off the field. So what that means to me is, like, in the classroom, I got to make sure, I can't tell you how many times I had guys coming up to me saying, E, should I skip class today? And it's like, you're asking the wrong guy.
Exactly.
Like, no, just go. Just go, right? Or even, like, we're out on the weekends. Like, I can be that guy where obviously everybody knows that's a part of college baseball or college in general, where you're going to go out and hang out with your buddies on the weekends, right? But if I can be there to kind of oversee and say, like, young guys coming in are excited. They don't have to listen to their mom and dad. There's no real curfew, right? So they're like, provide some direction and say, hey, listen, we can get up to this point, but we have to understand that the mission is get ourselves right on the baseball field when we go back to practice on Monday. So I guess what I'm getting at there is, how much does it mean to you to kind of find that balance of, we're going to have fun because we're college ball players and we're kids at college, right? But we got to find that balance where objective number one is succeed on the baseball field. So how much does that off the field piece connect in your mind to what happens on the field?
I think it's huge because a lot of the stuff we're talking about, while we are talking about baseball and we're baseball guys, I think a lot of it applies to outside baseball, like we were talking about in the beginning, and how you treat people. I love our cafeteria staff. Every time I go in there, they got smiles on their faces, and they work a tough job. They work long hours, and they work with a lot of kids that are impatient and rude, to be honest. And I see it. I see some of our teams and even just students just go in and they're just completely disrespectful. And it really bothers me sometimes. But, I think translating, the way you treat people, putting care and effort into the way you treat people, how you go about your classwork, getting your homework done, like we were talking about before. I think it all matters because, those little things, I think good habits translate to good habits on the field. Like, for example, this year I was totally floating by my first half of this past semester. I was like, man, like, these classes are going by quick, they're easy, but I had a bunch of those courses where I had a lot of work due at the end of the semester.
Right.
So I didn't look at the syllabus. as much as I should have, and I kind of just floated by. I was like, man, I'm living the dream. Like, this is senior year. This is easy. Like, I can hang out with my buddies. I can do whatever I want. And then it all hit me at once. And I was working too, for the school, and it all hit me at once. Class, baseball, work, and I totally mentally burned out because I was just not, I wasn't operating at a high level in the classroom. And I was like, man, I need to get back to where I need to be, because I feel like if you understand how to operate at a high level in the classroom, then you can understand how to operate at a high level on the baseball field or in a relationship. You know what it takes. If you do one thing at a high level, you understand what you need to do specifically, because everybody's different. What you need to do, whatever you need to put in, how much extra work you need to do, what little things you need to feel in order to do anything right in whatever you do. And I think that's huge. I think it's a huge proponent for me, for baseball, and for life, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like we were talking about earlier, like how you do something is how you do everything, right?
Yeah.
And we've all met those guys on the baseball field that can take this time of year we're in during the off season, during the winter time, and not pick up a bat, not pick up a ball. They show up on campus for the first practice, and boom, they're right back into it. And then you see guys that are on the other end of the spectrum where they need a little extra development. They come into their facility in the wintertime and they get after it, and they come back to the school a totally different ball player. So the next thing that sticks out in my brain from what you're saying so far is, like, you're talking about how your coaches will say, hey, listen, we need to make sure on this bunt player, this PFP, this guy stays away from the ball. We need someone else to get there. So I think the off the field piece that connects there is understanding the different personalities of different guys. Because I know I've played with, and I'm sure you've played with, guys that would take that personally. And when they're on the field, they're like, I know you don't think I can make the play, so I'm going to try to do some superhuman effort to go make that happen. And that's great. We love it when guys are involved and they want to succeed, but sometimes that's not what's best for the ball club, right?
Totally.
If my second baseman is the All-American, I want him to get over to cover first base on
Totally.
this bunt. I don't need somebody doing something extra, the pitcher trying to go over to cover, whatever it might be. So talk about how the personality piece off the field connects to executing those X's and O's once you get on the field.
Yeah. Man, this really rings true for me, because one of my best friends, and teammates, he's a pitcher, left-handed pitcher. It's so funny because we are, very different on the baseball field. And a big thing that we talk about with our pitching staff, our pitching coach talks about, is the intensity that you play at. Some guys play at a 4 or 5, some guys play at a 9 or 10. And my best friend, he's a 10. Like, he is, screw you, in your face. Like, I don't care who you are. Step up right now. He's, chirping hitters as they're walking back to the dugout if he gets them out. It's really funny actually to watch, and it's even better when we're going against each other in our squads. Like, me and him are just going back and forth, like, during the middle of an inter squad, like, fuck you, no, fuck you. And our coach loves it. It's awesome, but it's great energy. But one big thing for him and for me is, you need to know what you need to do to be at the intensity that you need to be at to be successful, and you need to do that consistently. So I think, for me as a catcher, when I do catch, when I notice he's not, himself, he's a little bit off, or when he's warming up before he goes in the game, he's a starting pitcher. I need to get in his face, and I need to be like, listen, like, let's fucking go. Like, do what you need to do. Stop, BSing, and get it done. And he'll be like, he'll give me like a, whatever, dude, like, screw you. But it works. Like,
And then he's back to where he needs to be.
and then I'm like, all right, here we go. Like, these hitters are in trouble. It's really cool to see. But you take that and you translate that to a big pitching staff, and then your fielders too. Like, you need to give support to your other teammates as well. I think it's a big undervalued aspect of the game, especially in college, to be able to know who you're working with, like we said before, and to know what you need to do. Some guys, you need to get in their face. Some guys are softer. You need to motivate them, tell them it's going to be all right, stuff like that. And I think it really, there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, I agree, and I think too, having a brother that plays is something that taught me that lesson. And I know you're in that same boat where your younger brother played too. I know my brother Danny still pitches for us at Newark, and I see the same thing that you're talking about with your buddy, where I know Danny needs me to go out and make a mound visit when he starts to, like, the shoulders drop and he starts to, like, place his pitches, because he's at his best. I remember from playing wiffle ball in the yard when we were pegging each other at 100 miles an hour and he's getting frustrated and fired up. So my mound visits, when my brother's on the mound and he needs a little slap in the behind, is hey man, you kind of suck right now, and I didn't put you on the mound to suck, right?
Yeah.
I put you on the mound to go get hitters out. So I don't know what the hell's going on with you, but you got to figure it out right now, or else I got this guy warming up in the bullpen for you. On the other hand, there's some guys where you got to go out there and they're not operating at that 10, like we're talking about. They're operating at that 4 or 5, like you're saying, where it's like, all right, catch your breath. I'm just out here to give you a breather. Let's relax. Let's get back in the zone. So touch on that a little bit. What did it mean to you and your development as the leadership figure we're talking about, where you got a little brother looking up to you?
Yeah, so my brother Joey, me and him were definitely opposites. I'm more of like if we're talking numbers, like a 7 or 8. Like I like to get up there. And I get pissed off when I feel guys aren't giving the same effort that I'm giving. And I feel like that can definitely be misinterpreted for a guy that just is a lower intensity kind of guy. And I think that was my brother. And I would like totally get in his face, and I think I would make him really upset. So I think you have to also remember, and I've done it at school too. Like, even this past fall, I would be talking to one of our younger coaches that helps out every now and then because, it's more relatable. Be like, I'm just trying to be a good senior leader. Like, do I need to get, like, you think I should get in this guy's face, or do you think he's really giving his best effort? And he's like, I don't know, man. Like, what do you think? What do you see? And there was actually an instance where our freshman second baseman, also by the name of Mike, he's pretty good. And we were in an inter squad on the weekend, and I think he made like 4 or 5 errors in
Tough
one
day.
game. And by the end of the inning, he's yipping it over there, and I'm getting pissed off. Like, I'm like, come on, man, like, let's go. But I understand, there's a big, big mental aspect of this game, and he's a very, very quiet kid, especially on the field. So I go over to him. I'm like, listen, like, you're okay. Like, you are a great ball player, and I know without a doubt that you can do it. But guess what? I can't believe it more than you believe it. Right?
Amen.
You got to believe in yourself right now. Right now, you got to nut up and you got to just do it. You can do it. I believe in you. I'm right over in center field. Like, I got you. I know you got me. Let's go, baby. Like, come on, let's do it. Let's play ball. And I think he figured it out at the end of the game, if I remember. He was fine the next day. But of course, the whole other team, who were our teammates, were chirping him, trying to make him make an error. But yeah, I think just knowing your guys and being able to talk, it's a lot. It's a lot less in this aspect about baseball than it is more about knowing people and knowing yourself and knowing your strengths and weaknesses. I think is a big piece.
Yeah, I think so too. And in that regard, like, I know doing lessons here or just coming up having conversations about baseball, right, and development within the game, you always hear about how baseball is such an individualized sport. Like, there's certain theories and certain principles that guys will talk about, but at the end of the day, like, how you hit is different than the way your buddy Mike hits. How I pitch is different than the way somebody on my staff at Newark Now pitches.
Mm.
So that individualization doesn't stop at just the physical. It doesn't stop at the way you perform on the field. It turns into how do you approach the game? What type of mental state do you need to be in to succeed? And that stuff's really important to see. And just like, how am I going to get this guy to the best level mentally so that he can succeed physically? Because, of course, we all have the same goal, but the way we have to approach it turns out to be a little bit different.
And I think as you get higher at the higher levels, I think coaches really look and they really lean on guys that make other players better. And one guy that really did that for me was playing with Jay Harry when we were younger. Unbelievable, talented kid. Just carefree, happy-go-lucky kid. And but playing with him at short when I was catching, I've never picked off more guys in my life. He was always working to pick that guy off second, and he was always ready to communicate. We were always on that, we were just on that level where we just knew, like, we knew we were going to pick this guy off, and it happened a lot, and it was just it was a great, and another, like, that pitcher catcher relationship. There's a handful of games I can look back and I can remember, man, it feels like I was just on another level, just me and the pitcher out there. It was just us, and we were communicating. You can just feel it. You can't even explain it with words. You can just feel it when you guys are on, when your pitcher's on, and when you like, you already know what next pitch you're calling. And he already knows what he's throwing, and it's just the same. And you guys are just on that same wavelength. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing to see, and it's a really cool thing to be a part of. I know, like, one of the coolest things for me at Rutgers Newark is we have some super talented young catchers on our squad. And one of the most fun things for me is, like, I'll call a pitch from the dugout and he'll shake me off. He'll be like, and after the inning, I'll be like, what are you doing shaking me off? Like, that's supposed to be the pitcher's job. But he's like, Coach, I know what he wanted. I know how we're attacking this guy. And it's awesome to see like you're saying, those guys that are on the field that are making everybody around them better.
Mhm.
Like the point I'm getting at is you're saying the coaches will lean on guys like that who have that leadership ability. And I think it goes back to what we're talking about, the stuff that happens off the field, because as much as we as coaches want the best and we're putting everything on the line so that we can win a ball game, even though we're at practice with you guys every day, we're at practice with the players every day, we don't have the opportunity to leave practice and go hang out with you off the field.
Yeah.
So you might have had a conversation with your buddy that's pitching the night before saying, hey, this has been feeling really good for me in the pen, and we normally attack it this way, but I think we got to go at it this way going forward.
Huge.
Even if it's at midnight when you've been
Huge.
sitting around watching college football all day,
Mhm.
right? So that's something that as coaches, we don't really have the insight on.
Mhm.
So we're going off, I know this guy throws this way all the time. That's great. But you just caught his bullpen earlier in the week, and you saw him now. Last week, his changeup was working really well, but he wants to go more to the slider, and it looks nasty.
Mhm.
I might not have that insight.
Mhm.
So I think your point is 100% correct, where coaches will lean on guys like that because as much as we want to be in charge and be in control of the situation, we might not always have that insight that you guys as players have amongst each other.
Yeah, and I can see how that can be super hard to just let go and not micromanage those relationships. And I think it's a really big factor. I can't tell you how many talks, and I think it really falls back on accountability.
Yep.
I think being accountable, because only you really know if you're pushing yourself. And I think if you develop the skill to kind of scan the room and see who's doing this, who's doing to the best of their ability, and if they're doing something to the best of their ability and something's not working, all right, let's transition, let's pivot to something else, let's pivot to a different pitch. And I think that's huge, just communicating. I think communication's a big factor.
Yep. And then as coaches, we can always rely on a guy like you or a guy in a leadership position to say, like, hey, we know this isn't working and it's the fourth inning and we're minus a run. Like, we got to pick it up. What do you see? What are you going with? And to have that communication and to have that trust with guys in the program that really get it, a guy that, has established himself and wants to be a leader and is able to fill that role. There's a ton of guys that want to be leaders that don't know what it looks like. But a guy like you're saying that can translate that and be kind of the mouthpiece between the connection point between your teammates and the coaching staff, then, going back to culture, we have that environment that we know we can succeed in when those pieces fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about accountability, right? Like we've talked about with everything here so far, it doesn't just mean how we perform on the baseball field. So what I want to get into here, another really cool piece of D3 baseball for me has been guys' ability to work jobs, like you're saying you do on campus, guys' ability to get internships in the summertime. Mm-hmm. I know that's something that, especially being a business school guy at Rutgers, every desk job that I would interview for said, how come you don't have internships on your resume?
Yeah.
What have those opportunities been like for you? I know we talked over the summertime. You had a pretty cool opportunity to get an internship. So shed some light on that from an angle I might not be able to touch on, just about, getting off the baseball field, life beyond baseball, and what that, workforce aspect looks like.
It's the same, man. It's different, but it's the same. Everything that we've learned at the warehouse, everything that you learn in the game of baseball, it's the same. You go in just to start. I treat interviews, the same way I treat baseball. I go in, I'm going to be myself. If they don't like me, okay, that's fine, because it wouldn't have been a good fit anyway.
Exactly.
I'm not going to try for those. I feel like what is it? They try to get the check boxes with the things they say.
Right. Yeah.
People try to say certain things to try to trigger, the interviewer or whatever. And I go in and I'm just myself. I'm going to be my happy-go-lucky, talkative self. I'm just going to tell them about my experiences. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to lie. And I think, going into my internship, I was also playing summer ball at the time. And it's one thing D3 baseball is really good for. You do, if you don't go away, you have that chance for the internship. And I was like, listen, like, here's my summer schedule. I don't know, like, if I'm going to be able to come to this or to this. And I remember the interviewer, I went through 3 rounds of interviews and they were like pressing me on it. They were like, well, I don't know if we're going to be able to make it work, but I was adamant about, I know I have the ability to do both and I will give you my best effort. And fast forward to the end of my internship and my boss was actually telling me, I actually accepted a full-time role with the same company.
Awesome, man. Congrats.
Thank you. So she told me, she was like, listen, like we go through a bunch of interviews and, when you have something else to do, like when you're not able to give your full focus, usually we're like, yeah, I don't know, no, next or whatever. And they were like, she made it known that, I came to her and I was very, straightforward, and I was honest, and I was like, listen, I can do this, but, here's what I need to do. Here's my schedule. I won't be able to make this day, this day, this day. I will be able to, I might have to come in at 8 and leave at 3 instead of coming in at 9 and leaving at 4 or 5 or whatever. So I think that's a big thing. It was an insurance internship, and so we had 10 interns in our office, and it's sales, so it's very competitive. So I'm like, all right, let's go. So we actually had sales challenges every week with the other interns. So you would either be by yourself, or you would be with a team of interns, and judges. We would have judges, people that already worked at the office, would come in and role play, and they would know obviously a lot more than you know, and they would give you scenarios. So for example, we would have to talk to a carrier, or we would have to talk to a client, and we would have to try to get them to take us on as their broker, and fire their current broker. And it was, it was so competitive, and it was so fun, because it's the same thing as baseball. It's like, all right, let me, prepare. Let me do all my preparation, so that when I have the opportunity to go in and make the kill during the conversation, I'm going to do it. And if I don't win the competition, then I don't win. And so, we had a bunch of training days in New York, and, a lot of what they talked about was get 1% better every single day, always be learning, do the little things right. And, half the people that I worked with, super cool people, they were like, yeah, I had no idea what insurance was before I started. I kind of just fell into it. And it's not something you have to be scared of when you go into the real world, because, as baseball players and as guys that aren't afraid to get our hands dirty and not know and fail. Failure is the biggest thing. Failure is the best thing that you can do in anything that you do. I'm a huge believer in that, because you never fail. You either win or you learn.
Amen.
And they said that so many times throughout the internship. And it was just, I was like, I'm at home. Like, I feel, people are good. The message is good. It's a good company. And I feel like I can really operate to the full of my extent in this company, because they believe everything I already know.
Right.
And everything I practice day to day. So that was huge. And a lot of the training was like, just get 1% better. And so, like, going back to what I was saying, a lot of the people that work there, they had no idea what it was, and they don't care. They bring you in, and they, they find the right personalities and the right fit, and you figure it out. And everybody's, willing, as long as you're willing to, make a difference, help, and learn every single day, be a sponge and absorb all the info that, comes at your way, you'll be fine no matter what you do. So, fast forward to the end of the summer, and we had a regional sales challenge. So there was about, I want to say 480, 500 interns across the country. So halfway through, they flew us to Chicago, and we had this big event. So it was cool to be in the same place as them. So fast forward to the end of the summer, and we had a regional sales challenge. So this was the Northeast. So there was offices from Boston, Pittsburgh, down in Maryland, maybe, the Philly area, and New Jersey, New York, obviously. So there's about 70 of us. And so my team had 3 people, including myself. And it was like a 3-round process. And it was pretty cool, because as you went further and further, the judges got harder and harder. Like, they were higher ups.
Right.
So we make it through the first round, breeze. There's like, we go up against 6 teams, and we make it through the second round. And the whole challenge was we had to present. So we had to present a proprietary model, right, to our client. So our client we chose was Stevens Institute of Technology, and we presented a terrorism coverage. And so, we memorized this thing inside and out. We got on the phone with a guy from London. It was super cool. There was a lot of people that were willing to help, and it really reinforces that you can't really do it alone. You need that village. So we get to the last round, and there's 5 people sitting across from the table from us, and there's 3 of us, and there's 100 people watching us, and it's supposed to be like a 25, 30-minute presentation. And like, the adrenaline's pumping, man. And there's a guy from Atlanta. There's two people from New York. My boss was there, and there's like a lady from Philadelphia or somewhere in PA, and they're all wicked smart, and they're all like higher ups in the company, and we're going against 2 other teams. And we just, we were like, all right, you know what? They know way more than us. So we're going to go in, and we're going to give them the reins. We're going to let them ask the questions. We're going to let them try to screw us over in our conversation. So we did that, and we made it super conversational with our whole pitch and everything, because you don't want it to be like you're pitching. And we gave them the reins, and they kind of tried to knock us down. And if we didn't know something, we were honest. We were like, it's a big company. We have resources. We have this guy that we know. We have this lady that specializes in this. But other than that, we tried to stay on our general path. We let them try to knock us off. And we ended up winning the challenge, which was super, super cool. Yeah, it was hype. But all the more it speaks to, every single day we, did a little bit. And the failure piece, there's this lady in our office, Maggie McIntyre. Man, she is a tough, tough lady. And we practiced with her, and she's something else. I was in the car on the way to a wedding. I wasn't supposed to be working. We set up a Zoom call. It was the Friday. So Monday and Tuesday was the conference. Tuesday was the challenge. It was the Friday right before, so the weekend before. I'm on my way to a wedding, and we're in the car, and we have to go through our presentation. And we had 3 roles, and we're doing our roles. I swear to you, I didn't get 5 words out of my mouth for an hour because she was just like, she'd be like, nope. Don't say that like that. Don't say that word. Don't say that word like that. Like it was just ridiculous. And it was just like fail, fail, fail. We were at each other's throats, the interns. We were at each other's throats. We were up until like 10, 11 o'clock at night just trying to, practice this thing. And it ended up bringing us closer together, and it ended up making all of us individually better. So I think that, a little glimpse into what I went through over the summer, baseball was the foundation for all of that, and all the experiences and people that I've met, definitely huge for all that.
I mean, that's an incredible story. And for you to have the passion and the integrity and stuff like that, that so clearly comes out when you're telling that story. The impressive part of it is you're doing all this and you're winning regional, national challenges.
Yeah, it was fun.
You were playing summer ball,
Yeah,
and lifting and getting your working as a baseball player while you're doing all this. So I think that's a question that comes up in my brain a lot, is like whether it applies to, can you succeed as a baseball player while you're trying to pursue a career, or vice versa? Can you do both? Obviously.
Yeah, 100%.
Obviously.
You're going to love it. You love it.
100%.
You'll figure it out.
And I think I love the piece you said where you're talking about understanding how to accept failure and how to grow from it. I know a quote that I've been dropping a lot in my lessons recently is the Thomas Edison quote, where he says, I wasn't able to come up with my light bulb invention until like my 1,000th try.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I wasn't wrong 1,000 times. I just found 999 ways that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And like that speaks to me in such a way, the same way your story does, where it's like, if you're looking at it as, oh, I failed and I should give up because that's not going to work for me, you're kind of missing the point a little bit. All you're doing is you're continuing to develop and saying, okay, this is what I'm after. Now I can cross one thing off the list and say, that doesn't work.
Yeah,
you've improved from it. So like you're saying, we can learn from that stuff. And a really interesting connection I'm making as you're telling your story is the attack angle you took on that final challenge was super impressive, because I heard some stuff. I'm talking with my grandmother recently. She's a PhD in microbiology. Mm-hmm. Her story is, when you give your PhD dissertation, you go up there and you're explaining this whole thing that you've worked for years on, and you're trying to prove this point about your subject, and the people judging you are asking questions from the same angle that you're saying, where they know more than you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And she said the only way you pass that dissertation, the only way they give you your PhD, is if you get to a question you don't know the answer to, and you say, I have to do more research on that.
Yeah.
They're trying to break you down and get you to say, listen, you're an expert in this field. We're going to give you a PhD in it. You're head and shoulders above 99.9% of people who have done what we do. But this isn't the be all end all. You have to continue to get better, continue to learn, continue to improve, and stick to that get 1% better every day mentality.
Yeah, because like if you BS it, if you're in the cage and something doesn't feel right, but you're hitting line drives to the back of the cage, it looks good. Yeah. Right. So why not, but you're only hurting yourself at the end of the day, right? It's not going to translate. There's a difference between hitting the ball off the tee, it's not moving, and hitting the ball, it's coming at you at 90 miles an hour or whatever. Going back to that sales challenge, we were in the second round, just a quick example. And one of the judges asked, they're like, well, the company's name's Gallagher. They're like, well, what's Gallagher's stance on guns? And my one teammate started to answer. And I think my other teammate, she tapped him or something, I forget, and was kind of like, don't engage in that, just kind of give an around answer. We don't want to engage in politics when you're talking to a client like that.
Right.
And after that round, they were like, we were uberly impressed with your ability to communicate, because we I'd never met these, other interns. We had spent 2 months together, right? So, you're building a team. We weren't always doing the sales challenges together. So and they really noted our ability to just weave and work off each other and bounce off each other, and to, not engage in that, and be like, okay, like maybe I shouldn't talk about that, or maybe another thing was, admitting when you don't know something. Like,
Right.
in that final round, they were talking about something that had nothing to do with our presentation. We're like, yeah, like, honestly, we're not sure, but, we have X guy that we can, hook you up with. We can, set up a meeting so that they can give you some more information. But let's get back on topic.
Right.
And, I think just admitting when you need help, and admitting when you don't know something, or when you don't know what something's supposed to feel like in the cage or on the mound, that's okay. That's what you're here for, or what coaches are here for. You guys have a lot of experience. And, like you said in your first podcast, you were like, I've had so many different coaches, and you turn that, yeah, well, I've had a lot of different coaches in college. You turn that maybe downside into an upside, because you're like, well, I have so many more different angles to learn from, and I can take what works for me. So I think it's, everything in life is perspective. You take what's good for you and what works for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I just think it speaks a lot to understanding how to handle adversity.
Yeah.
Whether it's coaching staff changes, getting your spot in the lineup taken by somebody else, or winning a sales competition, a certain type of person could say, when you get a weird question like that, what the heck are you talking about? And then everybody fails,
Mhm.
right? If you know how to handle adversity, you can say, okay, what angle am I going to attack this from? What different coaching staff voice am I going to use, right? What passion for the game am I going to fall back on to win my spot back? But also, it speaks on the ability that baseball gives us to operate in a team setting. And I think, whether it's you've never had an internship and all you've done is play ball, you know how to work in a team, you know how to compete the same way you're talking about. And then two, your one teammate steps in and says, hey, we don't want to engage in that type of answer in a situation like this,
Mhm.
right? Where this guy's like, oh, I can handle this question. I can take care of that.
Mhm.
That's where the competitive nature comes in. But then for your teammate to step in and say, hey, we're going to do better if we do it my way, trust me. To have that trust and be able to understand that type of environment is something that's huge that gets taken away from the baseball field.
Yeah, I remember talking about it with Hondo Diaz, one of the coaches at the warehouse, a couple years ago, and I think it was Hondo, and he was talking about how he didn't have any job experience going into his job, and he was like, what do I need it for? I have all the skills that I need. You go into so many different spots in the world, situations that make you uncomfortable, where you know nobody, and you still have to perform, right? That's mentally tough. That's adversity, right? You still have to do the little things right. You got to manage your body out in heat, right?
Yeah.
Like all those different things, and just the collection of those skills, and the skills you learn from baseball: team building, teamwork, how to talk to people, how to treat people right, because you do things one thing at a high level, you do everything at a high level. I just think you come into yourself, and you don't need that experience. You don't.
Yeah, and I agree. I think for a certain type of individual it can be valuable, but I think to learning how to compete, learning how to be in a team environment, that's something that can be approached in a ton of different ways. And if for guys like us it comes down to being on the baseball field, then that's great for us too. Hondo came on the podcast on his episode a couple weeks back now and told that same story.
Oh,
And
did he?
yeah, just
I
super
didn't get.
impressive.
I started watching that one. I didn't finish it though. I didn't hear that. That's funny.
So now we know Hondo wasn't lying to us when he told that story, but that's great stuff. And then what Hondo also talked a ton about was like making sure you're in a good fit, right? I think a lot of these lessons that we're talking about, we don't necessarily learn if we're not in the right place for us. So I wanna get some perspective on Alvernia, right? You're playing ball out in PA. You're a little bit further away from home. Talk about the campus. Talk about what do you love about Alvernia? Give us some insight about the school and the place you're at.
I love the size of the school. It's small. It's a small campus. It's a community, more family like, and I think that's for me. I think I would totally lose out if I was at a bigger school, because I don't know. I like walking around and seeing some people that don't play your sport, or that aren't affiliated with the team that you hang out with, or anything like that. I really like that aspect, and it's not too far. It's only 2 hours, but I think for the ability for me to come back and see my family if I need to on any given day, or if they need anything, or for them to come see me or come watch my games, have easy access to that. I think that was pretty big for me too, and I can see how if you're not in the right fit in that area of when you're getting recruited or when you're looking for colleges, I think that can be upsetting and problematic for some people. And you see like there's so many kids in the transfer portal now, and it's ridiculous. Like when you pick a 4-year school, it's not supposed to be like some year prospect camp where you go get better or something like that. It's a lot of money and it's a big commitment. You want to go somewhere where you feel at home and where the guy you can really buy into the message, and you can grow as an individual. So yeah, I think that stuff's pretty big for me and at Alvernia. I love the small family size community. That's pretty big for me, and the baseball team is the best team on campus for the most part, and I think that was huge for me too. I think going into a winning culture was big for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, what always sticks out to me is how many factors are important. Obviously, we're ball players. We want to go to school and play ball. But coming back and talking to guys now that have been through it the way you have, to just say, the culture is important, the campus life is important, the class size is important. How does it work out for my family and I financially is important. That stuff makes a ton of sense when you look back and think about it. Where on the front end, when you're going through that recruiting process, you're not always looking at it from that angle. From an outsider's perspective, if I'm going to visit Alvernia for a weekend, give me some spots I gotta hit.
Shady Maple smorgasbord. I think that's how you say it. Oh my God, the best breakfast you'll ever have. Amish, all you can eat buffet. Place is huge. It's out in Lancaster.
That's Amish territory.
Yeah, Lancaster, PA. You'll pass a couple horse and buggies on the way. It's unbelievable food. We actually went there. We used to have uh, off-season workouts in the morning, optional off-season workouts in the morning, 5 days a week, with our coach. Our coach is like 65 years old. He would work out with us just for like an hour in the morning at like 6 in the morning. And I think me and 10 guys went. And at the end of the semester, he took us out before Christmas, and we went to Shady Maple. It was about a 30-minute drive from school, but great food. They have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's probably my favorite spot to go to on the weekends. That's a huge spot for me.
So big shout out to Shady Maple out in Lancaster, PA. So
Love
next
it.
time I'm running through Alvernia, I'll make sure I check those guys out.
Yeah, check them out.
Another thing about Alvernia I wanted to touch on, we just had a guy from our 2023 class here at the warehouse commit to Alvernia. So what does it mean to you to be a guy where, I think you're the first guy from the warehouse to go to Alvernia.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to be able to kind of like grow that name and extend that network?
Well, it's a funny story. So obviously he was my recruit. My
Right.
coach set me up with him, but so we were inter squatting that day when he came this fall. And so I go over, he's sitting in the stands, and I was like, Quincy, what's up, man? Like, how you doing? He's like, I'm good, I'm excited to be here, all this stuff. I was like, yeah, man, I'll catch you after the game. Like, we're gonna have a great time. No worries. So I'm out in center field, and yeah, I was just gonna say it. Like, there was a ball line drive right over my head, and I'm playing deep. It was our four hitter. Hits a missile, and I'm going back, and ball, like, I don't know if it skimmed my glove or went right over it, and it was step wall, bang, I'm out. Like, I'm on the ground, trainers are running over. I tried getting up. I couldn't even get up. My face was on fire, like my head, like right here. And I had a concussion. So it's kind of funny because he was supposed to be my recruit, and he was my only recruit from the warehouse too. And I ended up like, I was like, yeah, dude, like, I tossed him to like a freshman or my roommate or something, and I was like, listen, like, I need to go sit in a dark room, sleep for like 3 days, which I did. So I was really upset about that. But knowing that the culture where I came from is coming to Alvernia is very pleasing, because I see how much my coaches lean on me to, like you said, deliver that message and that relationship, that when you guys go home, that I still need to hold our guys accountable when nobody's watching, and be an advocate for my teammates as well between my coaches. So I'm really happy about that, just because everything that Joe Augustine and Hondo Diaz and all the guys here at the warehouse instill in us, because those little things, it might seem little, but it can be tough to get those little things right, and once you get them right, they just it's like a snowball effect.
Yeah. And I mean, I know the cool thing is to be in a program where you can be part of the program and you can be a fan of the program at the same time. I
Yeah.
know it still is so cool to me. I'm like a little kid, like watching highlight tapes when guys from the warehouse commit to Rutgers these days. So it's awesome to like
Yeah.
sit here with a smile on your face and say like like we're still rooting for the program while we're in it. Because I'm
Mhm.
sure, we've all heard horror stories like you're talking about with the portal where guys wanted to go
Yeah.
somewhere and get out. But it's awesome to have that stance. And it's funny because you're telling that story about you running into the wall. The first recruit I had at Rutgers, kid Jacob Newman from Chicago. He came to campus. We had a blast during his official visit when he was on campus staying over with us. First Big Ten conference series that year, we go out to Illinois. So he takes the whatever it is, 20-minute trip from his house to watch us pitch at Illinois. It was the first and last Big Ten start of my career. I get up on the mound. I have a no-hitter through 2 innings, and then in the third inning, I gave up 7 runs before I got an out. So I get a text from Newman like, hey, tough one today, like bounce back, right? So now me and him are tight.
Yeah.
Same thing you're talking about where the connection goes past the baseball field, but it's cool where you can be in an environment where you can root for guys to grow that network and come to the school you're at, even when you run into the wall and get a concussion, even when you give up 7 runs before, you can turn around and even look at the scoreboard.
Yeah, that's a good feeling.
Yeah, and it's cool, like we're talking about this whole time today, is like having those relationships with those guys where it means more than just X's and O's on the field, or it means more than the result of the play.
I've got to interject a question here.
Of course.
How many times have you been to Are You Hungry?
More than I can count.
I had the over-under in my head set at like 15.
Oh, hammer the over.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, way over. But the thing is, at Rutgers on campus, you can get the fat sandwiches anywhere. Any pizzeria, any deli, like they'll cook you up a fat sandwich. So Are You Hungry is like the mecca. Like you go there, they're open late night. So if you're ever around, like I remember sophomore, junior year when I'm really getting into those upper level business classes, being at Alexander Library, Are You Hungry is right around the corner, and then up that same street was where I was living, my apartment. So I would come out of the library, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Everything else is closed, but the lights on Are You Hungry are on.
Yes, sir.
So if the over-under set at 15, the over hits. I promise you on that one.
Life's too short to bet the under,
Last thing I have for you today, I appreciate all your time. It's been awesome having you on here with me. What I want to get into, just from a little bit of a selfish perspective, is you had a little bit of a taste of coaching. I know last summer you and I got to get on the field and coach up those boys a little bit together. So outside of, having this awesome opportunity to go work full-time at an insurance company, what does it mean to you to kind of delve in and continue to give back to the baseball community that's up and coming the same way, we talk about our environment here? That's what we're all about. So talk about what it means to you to have an impact on guys that are coming up through the program now.
Yeah, I think, Hondo was my coach when I came through the warehouse, and he helped me like tremendously in a lot of aspects of my life. And one of the biggest things for me was I used to, sometimes I still do, but not nearly as much. I used to get so like frustrated with myself and so mad at myself. Hondo was like, dude, relax, like, take it easy. It was so funny. But for me, I haven't coached a lot, but seeing that on the other end, like, being able to help guys with baseball and being able to help them handle baseball and handle life, I think that's really cool. And I think it's really important too, because, so many guys come through here, I think, and I don't think a lot of guys figure it out. Like, and that's just the God's honest truth. Not knocking the warehouse by saying that. It's just how it goes. Like, as you go higher up, less and less guys, it's kind of like that funnel.
It gets tougher and tougher.
And I think, helping guys figure it out, you look at how many college commits that you guys have now, and Division I commits too, compared to when I was here. It's a tremendous amount. That new wall, we in the strength and conditioning room in the gym, we have a wall with all the strength and conditioning colleges that the kids are attending, and now we had to start a new wall, and that wall is going to fill up really, really quick, a lot quicker than the first one filled up, I think. And just, helping those guys progress in any way that you can help them, whether it's telling a guy to, take a deep breath and relax, and teaching him how to breathe when he's on the mound or when he's hitting, or tweaking his style or his swing, or interjecting your wisdom and like that combination of everything that you learned when you were going through it. I think it's pretty cool, and I think I'm very thankful to just be able to do that for anybody. And I think it's really a great part of the game that I appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun for me still, because I think I don't try to talk about this a bunch just from like a standpoint of humility and staying humble, but I think it's cool for, like, I know you and I were helping out with guys that were in 7th grade, but when I'm not with those guys, I'm with my guys that are juniors now, which is crazy because I've been with them since they were in 8th grade. But I think it's still cool for these guys to say, listen, like, a guy like Tommy, a guy like Eric, a guy like Hondo, fill in the blank with guys we have here, awesome staff. These guys have been through it. These guys have gone through college or high school baseball. These guys have gotten to the college ranks. We got a number of guys here that play pro ball where it's like, listen, however you are as a coach, whatever we're going to do X's and O's, win or loss on the field, these guys have these experiences. And if the kids we're coaching have a question or they want to figure out how to do X, Y, or Z, they know they're talking to somebody that's been in that position before and they can handle it. So,
yeah, and I think from a parent standpoint, I remember doing a lesson. I think it was not this past summer, but the summer before, a catching lesson, and the father asked me like, "Oh, what's the program like on the phone?" Like when I was, he had inquired about catching lessons, and I was like, listen, like it's a no BS atmosphere. Like we're gonna tell. I forget what the kid's name was, but we're going to tell your kid what it's, what it is, not what they want to hear, right? And it's not like a pay-to-play kind of thing. It's like you need to come in, you need to do the right things right, and you need to do them often. It's not you come in, you go through the motions, and then you go out and you go to X, Y, and Z tournament on the weekend, wherever. A lot of these, travel programs nowadays, they have all these flashy tournaments that they go visit, and that's their banner. That's what it draws the kids in, draws parents in. Whereas the warehouse, I think it's the honesty, and I think it's the the support and our ability to we've been through it, and we have guys because you have guys that go through it that are still like they go out and they're not good coaches.
Right.
I think having the combination of guys that go through it and know how to be good people and have it translate to the rest of life. And doing the little things right when you're talking about baseball, I think that's an important combination to have.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, and that kind of brings everything full circle, right? We start off the conversation talking about figuring out a way to get 1% better, right? If a coach is just telling you what you want to hear, I got a tough time believing you're really going to improve. Right. And then 2, how you do something is how you do everything, right? Whether that be on the baseball field, whether that be in a lesson, whether that be the way you're teaching a kid, or whether that be the way the kid's locked in and learning, right? I know Joe loves to tell the stories about somebody comes in without their belt or somebody's, walking down the baseline when they pop up and he says, hey, take today off and we'll see you the next time, right?
Yeah, seriously.
I'm sure these days there's a lot of programs where that kind of stuff doesn't go on. So I just think we're super fortunate where we have an environment where we know our kids are going to improve. We know that we're going to do everything the right way because we got to do the little things the right way. And I think to put a bow on everything we've talked about, right, just having that solid culture, having that good environment is something that becomes really important on the baseball field and then life off the baseball field, beyond the baseball field.
For sure.
Yeah. So, Tommy, thanks for joining me, man. Thanks, I can't thank you enough. It's been a ton of fun having a conversation with you.
It was a pleasure, man. I'm really glad to be here.
Happy that you enjoyed the conversation, and best of luck to you getting back to school and on the field this spring.
Thank you. If we run into you, I won't say good luck, but for now, good luck.
Listen, we still got to compete once we're between the white lines,
exactly.
Right? So I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Tommy, for the Green Grass and White Bases podcast. And for Tommy Faggioni, I'm your host, Eric Reardon. We're signing off. We're good. We're out. Thanks, bro.
How long was it?
1 hour and 2 minutes.
Wow.
Dude, that might be the best one I've done so far.
That flew by. That was fun.
That was a blast.
Yeah. I'm going to help you break this stuff down, though.
All right, I appreciate it. I'm just going to hit off on this.
It's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the